Good morning. Welcome back to Daybreak on this 20th day of April 2021. My name is Sam Gituku. And let me begin by introducing the panel that we have in studio here. We have Steve Ogola, an advocate of the High Court. Karibu sana to the show.
Asante sana.
And you haven't seen in a long, long time.
By the grace of God, we're here.
Martha Wangari, Member of Parliament, Gilgil, as well, you haven't seen in a long time.
Good to see you, Gituku. It's been a while, but I was here with Trevor just a while ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Rosa Boyu, the first time she's on the show this year, isn't it?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year on April 20th.
Yes.
And welcome back to the show. And Fred Okango, the Secretary General of the Third Way Alliance, he tells me that it's TAK, Third Way Alliance Kenya.
Not TWA.
Not TWA.
Not
Okay,
TWA,
all right, very well noted.
Thank you so much.
Right, and I want us to begin by looking at quickly at what's on the two dailies. Don't worry, I'll tell you what it is. First of all, you see on the Daily Nation, curfew brutality. A stay-at-home order was imposed on Nairobi to curb the spread of COVID-19. And the nation is reporting of the pandemonium, calling it so. The chaotic scenes witnessed in the city on 2 consecutive nights were largely avoidable, but for overzealous police officers who blockaded entire roads and refused to let through essential workers, including doctors, ambulance drivers, and security personnel. Let me begin there because, of course, several Kenyans are complaining that there is a bit of force, or is it so, in as far as blocking people from getting to their locations. I'm sure you were able to watch the news on Saturday and Sunday, and the police were saying that if you're not an essential worker or you don't have a clearance letter, then you're going to spend the night there. What is your assessment of such an action at a time that, yes, people are supposed to be home by 8 o'clock in the 5 counties?
No, I think there are practical challenges with the curfew timelines, but I think the more urgent question of constitutional relevance is the display of impunity on our roads by our police officers. You know, when you block traffic and you hold people and prevent them from going home, within that crowd there are essential service providers who are caught between the crowds, yeah, and therefore they cannot move. I think this is a demonstration of raw power, use of raw power, and abuse of discretion. Just because you know you can enforce the curfew rules between 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. does not mean that you do it in a chaotic and illegal manner, because you needed to sort of. I think the better way is this. If government is deliberate that they want to enforce these curfew measures, then there's no any other way than what the law has provided for, which is to arrest, detain, and then produce them in court within 24 hours. There's no provision in the law that permits police officers to detain people on the highway. You can't enforce the law by violating the law. But be it as it may, the practical aspects of this curfew, I think, is dubious and is questionable in the sense that I have, for instance, I run a law firm and I have employees that leave work at 5. By the time they go to Embakasi or maybe wherever they are going, they are always in traffic by 7:30. In fact, we had a meeting and said, okay, fine, you can leave at 3 p.m. But you know the practical challenge of releasing someone at 3 p.m. when there's little work flowing and the client has walked in at 4 p.m., you know, I think government needs to be serious in the way it's implementing the measures, yeah? We need to adjust the curfew hours from 8 p.m. to about 9 or 10 p.m. But within this existing framework, even if you are to enforce it, there is nothing like ili iwe funzo. You know, that's what I saw. Ili iwe funzo kwa wengine. We're not teaching lessons here. The purpose of the law is to maintain law and order. You can't create chaos in your bid to maintain law and order. So I think this must be condemned, and we hope that it stops, it doesn't get to go on.
And Honorable Wangari, so what do we do? Because there are those that say that we need to adhere to the curfew rules because the reason why they were put there is so that they can be enforced and people are kept safe. But at the same time, there are those kinds that you tell you, like what Ogola is saying here, that it's just not possible. What does it help?
I think it's a very tough balance, and the president has had a very tough time even declaring this curfew in the DIZ, or what we call now the disease-infested zone, because you're trying to balance the need for someone to go out and work. But there are also those people who are actually just, I would say, out to just be mannerless, because you saw a video, and I know you have seen it, of people in a club, you know, locked inside, dancing and drinking. And then you want us to be kind to those people. And again, I agree with Ogola in terms of implementation. But even if you arrest 1,000 people, Sam, where do you take them? And don't forget, even these police officers are also potential transmitters because they interact with these people a lot and often. So I agree there are challenges. And I would say that because even yesterday there were issues with school-going children or school-going kids who are stranded in the city because of the curfew. It's never comfortable, and it's a difficult time, because even when we started, it was at 7 p.m. We let it go, and it went up to 10 p.m. And I'll tell you, in January, even as politicians, we let our guard down. We were out for meetings. I was in my constituency almost throughout, you know, and it brought us where we are right now. So I think it is a personal responsibility. Not just of the police and the law, but also as people who are, you know, as revelers, as people who are working, we have to have a balance. What happened on Thika Road on Saturday? Of course, it was condemned and it was brutal. But what I thought would have been more practical, there are those curfew breakers who are just, you know, just taking their sweet time, because in any case, you can still pass. But when they were found in that situation, there would have been an expressway for people who had to go, especially people who are going to the hospital, service providers that were needed to be somewhere. There should have been an expressway to manage it, so that we are able to, you can take time with these curfew breakers, but don't lock out the ambulances, don't lock out people who are going to the hospital, don't lock out doctors, don't lock out nurses. Have an expressway. But I think Kenyans also are just sometimes, you know, we take it easy. So when we are surprised like that, on Sunday, the road was clear, you know, or because of what happened on Saturday. So it's a tough balance, not just for government, but also for the police. Because even if you arrest these 100 people, you take them to a cell, do we increase the chance of contracting COVID, or do we reduce it? But having said that, I think the way we have to solve this issue of COVID is the vaccination, especially for frontline workers. It must not be let to be voluntary. It must be mandatory. Teachers be vaccinated. The police officers be vaccinated. It must be mandatory, so that we are able to, even in this disease-invested zone, the one thing the government should have done is ensure that everyone is vaccinated. The way we hawk polio vaccination for kids in homes, we make sure it is a requirement that they are vaccinated. Because even if we do what we are doing and trying to implement this curfew, then at the end of the day, we go back to our normal life without having controlled the disease. It beats the logic.
And unfortunately, they said that there's a challenge of the vaccine availability, because we just received 1.1 million doses. Not sure if the other consignment will be here on time. But Honorable Rosa Boy, I want to ask you this, because you've been away, so probably in Kisumu, and welcome back to the disease-infected zone. But when you look at the numbers that we report, because yes, there are more infections reported in Nairobi, and these are the 4 counties, but also there's more testing in these counties. So does it tell us a clear picture? Coming from Kisumu, do you see a reflection of the numbers that are reported vis-a-vis what the communities are going through? Are they tallying that to say that these 5 counties are the worst hit when it comes to the disease?
Thank you. I think that the numbers that we're reporting are not real numbers. And the more we get tested, the more we'll realize that there's actually higher infection rates. And it is true that Nairobi, which has or bears the bulk of tested people, actually shows that there are more people infected. But if we were to test across the country and test with as much vigor as we test in Nairobi, we'd actually realize that there are many, many more numbers coming from within the other regions. And I'd like to say that in places like Kisumu and the other regions, there are actually deaths occurring. But there are deaths occurring, but because of lack of adequate testing, people are not putting it down to COVID. There's a lot of deaths coming out of pneumonia or malaria that kills you within 3 days, or just, you know, almost close symptoms that are close to COVID symptoms. But because they've not been tested, they are not counted or put to the numbers of COVID. But I'd like to get back to the question that you initially asked. And I think it's a situation where the government is damned if it does and damned if it doesn't. And we are missing the point here. The point is on personal responsibility. It is not the police that is the problem. It is the people who are not adhering to the curfew rules that's causing all these problems. And if we adhere to the curfew rules, we would not have all the issues with traffic jams and all that. The reason why I'm saying this is because the government's responsibility is to protect its people. And basically the curfew and other measurements that have been put in place is to just protect and ensure that people don't lose their lives. And this is a case where if you are sick and I'm not sick, I'm most likely going to get sick just because you are sick. And so it's the government's duty to try to keep people as far apart as possible. And for me, imagine I think this time the government is doing it right.
Okay.
Because you've been asked to keep away and stay at home.
Despite the inconveniencing fact of those essential
Just
workers.
let me say this, and that comes to sorting out the operationalization of this, of whatever they're trying to do. But what the government is doing is, you know that you are supposed to be away or in your houses by 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
It is true, like the advocate has said, that if you work up to 5, and given the constraints we have with our transport, you might not be able to be in the house at 8 o'clock. But those are issues that can be sorted out. And probably what the government needed to do was make an announcement and prepare people that from this date, if you're out of your house at this particular time, this is what's going to happen. And we have a special freeway or special free pass for essential services. They should have sorted all that out, because if they did, we would not have got to where we are. But I want to say that that activity probably is what's going to make Kenyans listen and behave. Because again, like Honorable Martha said, you saw the mess on Saturday, but by coming on Sunday, it now reduced because people are like, oh, this is going to happen to me. Mm-hmm. Stay on the road until 8 o'clock in the morning or until after curfew hours. Stay there. You wanted to be out of your house, stay out of your house until after curfew. But we must have expressway and an opportunity to get the essential workers to get to where they want to get to. But if you want to be out of your house, Sam, after 8, you should be kept there until after curfew hours, because you're not going to infect other Kenyans and put other Kenyans at risk because you want to run around after 8 o'clock.
Right. And of course, just a moment, of course, there's that story on page 6 and 7 that is talking of the inhumane manner of the containment or the enforcement of the curfew, and a couple taking an infant to hospital said they had been there for 2 hours. The mother rocking her baby quietly in her arms was too distraught to talk. Of course, these are the victims of what you would
Yes, and those are special cases, and there should be a way to get those people to actually manage to go to hospital if they need to go to hospital.
Okay.
Yes, but the issue is not the police. The fundamental problem here is with us. We are the ones breaking the law, but all the time we keep on passing the buck to the police and forgetting where the problem actually is. So Kenyans must behave. All right, Kenyans must behave, you say. But Fred, what is your assessment of the entire government response to this pandemic, looking at all those issues, whether it's curfew and enforcement, whether it's the response in as far as the testing, treatment of those people that are positive, but also the plan about getting as many jabs as possible into the country?
Thank you, Sam. Let me start from what happened last Sunday. The last communication that was made by President Uhuru Kenyatta, paragraph 15 of that communication, he directed that all businesses and enterprises and employees to try and work from home, except for those that are cannot be delivered from home. Mm-hmm. And that involves now the essential services. That directive still stands. Number two, when you look at how Kenyans take things for granted, they know very well that there's a curfew directive that requires you to be at home before 8. Mm-hmm. They leave their work of place, their place of work at 7:45, with the hope that the police will give them another 30 minutes extra time to get where they're going. It's not going to work. Mm-hmm. And I think we have tested the patience of the police for so long, because Kenyans, in their nature, they do things last minute. Having said that, we are aware that the essential service providers have been expanded. Today we have got advocates as part of the essential service providers. And therefore, to that extent, we should respect that anyone who falls under the essential service provider category must be allowed to do that, because he can be from work or she can be from work and she could be going to work. Mm-hmm. I saw a very unfortunate event last time when a mother with a 2-year-old baby was stuck on traffic because the police blocked the road to contain or to punish the curfew violators. It is unfortunate. But I think the next day they corrected it and said that now we are going to use the inner lane as express lane so that anyone who is under emergency, who is a service provider, station service provider, can now use that. But you know what? It didn't stop, because we still witnessed some people still going home past curfew hours, and with the pretext that they were at work. While there's an order, that some of these services that are not very vital can be done from home. Today, we have seen the emergence of digital technology, where guys can do Zoom meetings. Board meetings that used to take 1 hour are taking 30 minutes online.
Right.
So I think it's important that Kenyans realize that the reason why the curfew is there, it is a management tool. Not only a health management tool, but also a security management tool. Because it's reported
I've asked you the question of the entire response.
I'm arriving there.
Because let me just explain a point here. Because even after we flatten the curve, because we're told we'll do that in mid-May, there'll come a time that people sort of get back to normal, because it's human. So what are we doing to ensure that we don't get back to the vicious cycle of locking down and opening?
First of all, Kenyans must understand that it's important to obey the World Health Organization protocol and MOH protocols. One of them is what we're talking about: social distancing, washing your hands, masking all the time. Kenyans today, when you walk out here, they don't do that. Very few do that. Number two, the mass vaccination that my colleagues have talked about. We must now undertake mass vaccination so that we all build immunity. At the end of the day, Sam, let us be honest, at some point all of us will get this disease and will build immunity, and then now we'll go back to lowering the curve. That's where we are going. So today, what the government has done, I can give them a 5 out of 10. They are improving day by day. What we want to see in the coming days is that how do we now ensure that we achieve a mass vaccination where every household, door-to-door vaccination, so that we can actually say by whatever time we have achieved 70%. Some of the developed worlds today, they have got 70% achievement of vaccination. In Kenya, it is coming. We were told the other day that there's a deficiency in the, in the vaccine. But we believe that the next batch, then now we need to expand the people who are receiving the vaccination. We started by frontline workers. We have gone to the elderly. I think we now need to go to even the masses by going to homes.
But you don't have the supply.
It will come. It will come. Okay. And again, Sam, by the way, if you look at what the government has done, that regular communication to remind the people that don't lower your guard is a very big step that we undermine. We don't take it as a serious thing. But look, the government keeps on telling us that wear your mask, wash your hands, sanitize, keep your distance. But look, Kenyans are here. You go to the matatu and there is no social distancing. They don't wear their mask. They walk into a building. When the security guard asks them, can I get your temperature? Can you sanitize? They turn at the security guard. So we are our own enemies. We must be responsible citizens to ensure that at the exact time we lower these, we flatten the curve.
Okay, all right. And I want us to take a short break so that when we come back, we'll be focusing on what's going on at the Judicial Service Commission. Sorry, Ogola, but I'll give an opportunity to say that when we come to the next topic.
That's fine.
After the break, so far the Judicial Service Commission has interviewed 6 candidates. Today is the turn of Senior Counsel Fred Ngatia, who will be appearing before the JSC panelists, 9 of them, to make a case on why he should be the next Chief Justice. So we'll be talking about that and looking at whether we have already seen a Chief Justice or not after the break.